It's going to be interesting to see what YouTube does to this video, whether they suppress it from going out or whether they take it down completely. We'll see. Time will fucking tell. Now, what I'm going to do is show you what I've learned working with a lot of experts for close to 7 years now with hormones and genetics to optimize testosterone and also dihydrotestosterone, DHEA too. Now, what I've learned is that it's a benchmark for men's vitality as we age. And I've also learned another truth that the system has basically lied to us about and they're gaslighting us about. They will tell you that as men age, our testosterone will plummet. That is normal. On the next slide, I'm going to show you that that is not normal. Now, the first thing that we have to appreciate is that when it comes to testosterone, it affects every area of your life. Now, the great news is you don't need to chase high levels at all. Some men have got potent androgen receptors, so they might need, say, 450, 550, and they're fine. How do you know? Well, how do you feel? What's your affect? Is your confidence there, motivation and energy, and what's the body doing? You're lean and muscular. How is the body? How is the mind? And that's all you need. You don't need to go chasing for these super high levels. Now, on the other side of that coin, if you've got weak energy receptors, you might need 800 or 1,000 to feel the same as somebody with potent androgen receptors. They're called CAG repeats. So the less repeats you got, the more potent testosterone works for you, the harder it works for you. Now, I guess beginning of 2020, when the shit jabbed us in the shoulder there, we started to see the system for what it was. Yeah, so hopefully YouTube won't turn down the volume on this video. What I'm going to show you is play a couple of videos here from people that I've spoken to about how important testosterone is, especially as we age. The first video is from Dr. Amy B. Keelan. So she's an expert in sexual performance, hormones, and longevity. I heard Dr. Amy speaking about how important testosterone is for aging men. So I reached out to Dr. Amy on Instagram and we did a podcast and I asked her the question. I said, what are the consequences of men with suboptimal or low T? Well, this is what she said to me. Check this out.
It's also things that are even more important. We know that men who have lower testosterone levels, they tend to have higher mortality rates in general. So all-cause mortality is higher in men with the lowest quartile of testosterone levels. So we're going to see increases in things like cardiovascular disease. So heart attacks, strokes are going to go up generally if you have low testosterone, increased diabetes, increased obesity, increased problems with mood disorders, depression, insomnia, anxiety. All of that goes up as you have lower testosterone levels. And then certainly sexual dysfunction. So everything from low libido to low sperm counts and infertility are all associated with low testosterone. So it's not something that we should just brush off as being like, it's no big deal. Like, it's kind of a big deal. It actually means that our men are getting less and less healthy, and they're more and more likely to suffer from some kind of disease problem.
Yeah, 20 years ago, back in my early 30s, I was a mess. Panic attacks, social anxiety, performance anxiety. I was also a people pleaser, and that anxiety was crippling to me. So my doctor put me on all this medication, anxiety, then high blood pressure medication, and the high blood pressure medication triggered asthma, and we didn't pick that up at the time, so I was on that. Then I started to get shoulder pain, arthritis, so I was on medication for that, corticosteroids. So the system didn't work for me. And I went back to him and I said, maybe we should check to see where my testosterone is. So I did a bit of research and I found that it lowered anxiety. And he said, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So that's where it was left. And I just suffered. When I was on these drugs, I packed on the fat and it didn't fix the anxiety. So what did I do? I started to drink more and more alcohol, basically a borderline alcoholic. I was ashamed of who I was as a man, 4 kids and an amazing wife. And I'm failing everybody, including myself. And I'm trying to keep this to myself and just try and be a strong man. And you eventually get sick and tired of that. You get into enough pain where you just feel gassed and something's got to change. So this video here is from my friend Dr. Ken Berry. Now you probably know Dr. Ken. I've spoken to Dr. Ken on several occasions, and this one here really struck a chord with me. So he talks about two important things. The first one is suboptimal T, and also the medications that we're put on and what they do to us. So listen carefully.
But just focusing on low testosterone, yeah, the classic symptoms are fatigue, no get up and go, no drive, no drive anywhere, no drive at the office, no drive, in the yard or the garden, no drive in the bedroom. Just you don't really care about doing a good job at anything. You just kind of you get by to get along. Weight gain is very common. You're tired all the time, yet you don't really sleep very deeply during the night. Belly fat is a huge, even if you're not overweight, you're still going to have a little belly pooch. It's very classic. You can start to develop man boobs, which I have a YouTube video. You know that video
that was me. Yeah,
2 million views or something, because having man boobs is so common in the world today that there are over 2 million men who watch my video on YouTube about it, if not 3. All those things are symptoms of low testosterone. And there's a long list of prescription medications that you might be taking from your doctor, your doctor that you trust, that could actually be plummeting your testosterone levels. I've got a YouTube video about medications that lower testosterone.
Wow. So I was on all of those medications. No wonder I felt like shit. So I would have been a repeat customer of Big Pharma for life if I didn't fight my way through this. And I'm off all those medications now, and I've never felt better. Now, this is Dr. J, who I've been working with for years and years and years. Now, you probably know Dr. J. He's a genetic expert, and he also did a 5-year PhD on cholesterol and sex hormones. And he also worked at the Mayo Clinic doing Alzheimer's research. So he's worked in the system. He's seen how it works firsthand. Now, this is his take on how busted the system truly is.
Yeah, it's not thriving. It's definitely suboptimal. It's frustrating, honestly. I mean, especially on the topic of testosterone, because if your testosterone goes down, just your health in general goes down. So that opens the door to a bunch of prescription drugs.
Yeah.
And so the pharma companies are very excited about keeping your testosterone down from a financial perspective.
Exactly.
As a business model, it's a good idea for them.
Interesting to say the least. Now, I'm going to give you a case study. We've gotten several men off testosterone replacement therapy. And this one in particular, he also had a low testosterone gene. So that doesn't mean you're going to have low testosterone. You just have to do a few things. So I'm going to show you exactly how we did that. Now, when it comes to this gene in particular, this is what Dr. J says about this gene. So this gene right here means that a lot of men will have low testosterone by default.
Oh, yeah, especially in our culture.
With this gene specifically, what's their testosterone like?
Yeah, it's usually, in America, it's usually about 250, maybe 300.
Yeah.
And that's absurdly low. And by the way, the doctors will tell them that's fine. And our
that's
ancestors,
not fine. That's like getting 50 horrible. In a math test and saying, I aced it. Yeah.
Yeah. So to say 250 or 300 is fine, and modern medical doctors do that all the time. It's absurd. You definitely don't want to be that low. You got to get it up. You have to.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So basically, as I mentioned, with the androgen receptors, potent or not so potent, it just depends on your affect, how you feel, how the brain's working, the mind's working, your confidence, your motivation, and what the body looks like too. Now, the next piece of the puzzle is, quite simply, they tell us, and they gaslight us and bold-faced lie, that as men age, our testosterone declines. We've worked with several men in their 60s, this gentleman here, 62, 791, so never back the idea that it will decline as you age. Now, this is Huberman, and he talked about this years and years ago on YouTube, and I found it kind of hard to believe when he said this. So I asked Dr. J after I heard this, but listen to what he says.
Talked about the fact that if you really look at the data, just for instance on testosterone, there are men in their 90s, and they are not rare, it turns out, that are making as much testosterone and DHT, dihydrotestosterone, as they were in their 20s.
I remember thinking, Jesus, damn, that's incredible. And I did a bit of research on dihydro back then, and I found out that it was a superpower, you know? So dihydro testosterone has a 2 to 5 times higher binding affinity to the androgen receptor. But here's the superpower. It's got a 10-fold higher potency than testosterone. And the thing about dihydro is it's easily brought down to the floor. There's at least 15 inhibitors that I've discovered. And I'll talk about that towards the end. So as I mentioned there, I found it hard to believe. So I asked Dr. J if it was the truth. So this is what he said. Got as much testosterone and dihydrotestosterone as they did in their 20s.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
Yep.
It's surprising how little it goes down with age.
Yep.
If you optimize your health.
Keyword, optimize your health. So we're going to talk about how you can possibly do that with all the information that people are throwing at us. There's at least 5,000 diets that I've heard people talk about. You know, there's so many. If you look at all the books on Amazon, it is just ridiculous what's out there. And it can't be that hard, and it isn't. It's actually pretty simple. Now, why do you think this low testosterone is okay? Well, a video here of me and Dr. Ken Berry talking about that. But before we get to that place, you know, it's been declining for a long time. When Dr. J did his 5-year PhD, you know what he did? He went back to the 1940s when testosterone was first being measured. And for a man my age, and I'm 54 in July, it was over double what it is today, about 800. No fancy supplements, no fancy diets. So there's your first clue. In the 1980s, it really started to take a nosedive, about 1.6% per year. So that's 16% per decade. In the 1980s there, for a man my age, it was about 550. So we were still lean, mean machines. We were getting out there and getting shit done like a boss. Now it's at about 350, around about there for men my age. And look at us, suboptimal, just absolutely gassed as men. Now, what I have come to understand working with these experts is basically you've got stress, metabolic stress, which is what I call blood stress. There's a lot of things that drive that. There's a short list. Now, what we're going to be focusing in on here today, like you know about the chemicals, circadian rhythm is very important, you know, blood sugar issues, having low electron pull, and I'll talk about how to increase all of that. So we'll talk about that. Now, one thing that's important is gut health, unquestionably. Now, what you might know about having a great gut function is if your stress hormones are too high, it destroys your gut function. And if your thyroid's suboptimal, your progesterone's suboptimal, your estrogen and your testosterone is suboptimal, it's going to come crashing down and stay down. So when your gut isn't functioning optimally, this is what we can expect. Your gut speaks to every organ in your body. So the gut-brain axis, you know, you've got extra stress, negative thoughts, sabotaging yourself, lack of confidence. Then you've got the anxiety and depression. And a lot of people have undiagnosed IBS, got no clue. And it can even drive things like schizophrenia, autism, and of course, cognitive decline. You know, you just don't think properly. And then problem number one for your hormones is it disrupts your endocrine axis, your hormones. As a double whammy down here, number two, you got ball sack, testicle axis, primary hypogonadism. And then the heart disease. And they don't talk about this when you go to your doctor, do they? They just prescribe you drugs. They don't even look or think about testing your gut. So you got atherosclerosis, lesions and plaque, thrombotic events, thick, sludgy blood, hypertension, which is simply high blood pressure. And then your lungs, so things like asthma, sinus, hay fever, the liver. And the liver is foundational for human health. We have to detox a lot of shit that's coming into our body, estrogen included. Then over here, the pancreas, type 1, type 2 diabetes, blood sugar dysregulation, bones, osteoporosis. Then over here, gut muscle access. Just think about that. You think you're doing everything right. You're training in the gym and you can't really pack on the muscle. And, you've probably got a belly pooch and you can't see the abs. Well, if you don't pay attention to gut health, 40, 50, 60, sarcopenia sets in, muscle wasting, and you become very frail as you age. And I guess you don't want to wrinkle prematurely, probably not. So the gut skin access there, advanced skin aging and wrinkles, eczema, acne, cirrhosis, atopic dermatitis, things like that. Then you got the kidneys, the bladder, gut eye access, thyroid, every organ system has an access. So got to make sure we've got a healthy gut. Now, when it comes to testosterone production, we have to optimize a few things. So we're going to start talking about how to optimize your man juice. So every 2 hours, your body sends out pulses of LH, which is the precursor to testosterone, and FSH, spermogenesis, fertility. So there's a lot of things that are taking it out, and we'll talk about that as we progress. Now, one of the biggest issues that I see is this, and this, and this. So stress hormones, too much estrogen, inflammation, leptin issues, and insulin and blood sugar. So that there are a few things that will either slow it down or completely inhibit it. Then you've also got things that waste it. Testosterone goes through aromatization, turns into estrogen, you become estrogen dominant. Then you've got also things that accelerate the production of testosterone. Now, just to show you genetically here, some people have really poor estrogen metabolism genes. So there's a few genes that's involved in estrogen metabolism, getting it down to safe levels, optimal levels. So you have to have testosterone and estrogen at a proper level ratio, and that is important. You don't want to completely wipe out estrogen. It is very important for us. So as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 issues with estrogen metabolism. So we'll talk about how to fix that issue as we progress. Now, what you mightn't know here is that the mitochondria, they are one of the most important organelles in all of your cells. Estimates, human cells, well, we've got trillions. I think the last time that I looked, it was about 40 trillion cells that we've got. Now, inside our cells, we've got mitochondria, and I'll talk about what they do in a moment and how to optimize them. Suffice to say that they are hard workers for us. They're producing our energy, lots of other different things there. There's a lot of things that take them out, and I'm going to show you how to fix this issue. So they're going to be producing our ATP, energy of the cell. So some cells got a few hundred, some cells got a few thousand, and brain cells like 10,000, heart cells like 10,000, ball sac cells, sperm cells, 10,000. So we need these mitochondria to be healthy. And a lot of people do not have healthy mitochondria. So what do the mitochondria do? What are their critical functions? Well, they are making neurotransmitters for cognition, higher thinking, and also the immune system in the periphery and gut health. Hormones, they are a necessary step to make your testosterone. Then they're repairing RNA, DNA, lipid metabolism. So if you want a lean body, they're the only place you can burn body fat and fat coming in through diet. And also protein synthesis, mTOR complex. And it's not just muscle building. Our body is a protein machine. It's facilitating all of that protein synthesis. So that's thing number one. Number two, they are regulating a lot of homeostatic balances in our whole body. And what I think is the most important, number three over here, they communicate with cells, organs, and systems. So let's check out a few here. Central nervous system, sports performance, cognition, higher thinking. The intestine, so you actually absorb nutrients from food, and also the microbiome. The circadian system, which is foundational. If your circadian system is weak, your mitochondria are suffering and they are weak. And then, of course, the metabolic system, the metabolic pathways that keep you performing at a very high level, and also the immune system. Incredible. We're not done yet. They are also in control of gene expression, epigenetic pathways, and cell fate. Now, one of the biggest things that will destroy the mitochondria are what are called food sensitivities. So there's two kinds. If you've got a sick gut, you will have inappropriate food sensitivities, which you can test for, IgG, IgA. And then you've also got DNA food sensitivities. And I'm going to show you some of the ones that we've discovered testing over 320 people. Now, this video I'm about to play are just showing you how serious food sensitivities are when it comes to the mitochondria. Now, I learned this information by being trained by Dr. Daddis. I went through his food sensitivity course, his hormonal health course, his immune health course, gut health course, and brain health course. It took me close to 2 years, and it was just fascinating going through that research. Highly educated gentleman, PhD, DHSC, DC, MS, MMSC, FACN. So look at just a couple of the consequences of food sensitivity. So listen carefully.
Can be delayed. And then another one is fatigue. Food sensitivities with people is they just lose their energy. They just get tired all the time and they don't know why. And they're really frustrated by that. So systemic inflammation can actually uncouple what are called mitochondria in cells, which are used to make energy. So chronic inflammation can reduces their production of ATP, which is energy. Many people get just this weird type of tiredness and fatigue when they have food sensitivities. Another major one is change in their cognitive functions. They get brain fog all the time. They can't think. They can't focus. They have some concentration.
Leave it there. So the most important thing, take away from that is the mitochondria. Now, when it comes to testosterone production, the mitochondria are absolutely key and necessary. We need them healthy, and I'll show you how to make them healthy towards the end. So every 2 hours, as I mentioned, in a healthy system, doesn't have any metabolic dysfunction, you will release LH from the brain into the blood. It'll make its way to your ball sack, your testes, and they're called Leydig cells. So LH binds onto the receptor, goes in this energy pathway. So there's your first clue. You don't have a lot of energy, not a lot of man juice for you. Now, if you've got hypertension, high blood pressure issues, you're not going to be making a lot of nitric oxide. So once those two pathways combine, it triggers this starch protein, which is the rate limiting step, and it imports cholesterol into the mitochondria. So if you've got weak mitochondria, you're not going to be making a lot of testosterone. So this is quite easy to fix. Now, I just want to talk a little bit more about the mitochondria. So there's two issues with the mitochondria. They can go through two processes. One is called heteroplasmy. Professor Doug Wallace has shown, I think it's like 5 decades of research, which has kind of been swept under the rug. Nothing to see here, says Big Pharma. That every 10 years, your mitochondria can go through what's called heteroplasmy. That is mutated DNA in the mitochondria. So every 10 years, 10%. So you eventually get to a place where your mitochondria are pretty sick and diseased, high mutated mitochondrial DNA. So cancer's a pretty good word there. But we've got another issue too, which is fission. They go through a process called fission, resulting in small damaged mitochondria. Now, there's a protein inside the mitochondria that takes care of oxidative stress. And it's estimated that at least 80% of the oxidative stress that our body creates is through the mitochondria. So if you've got an issue with a gene called superoxide dismutase 2, that is a big problem for your mitochondria. Now, this is Dr. J just speaking about the deleterious health consequences of this gene in particular.
Heart disease. Yeah. So this one gene, there's really the two genes here, but the SOD2 gene is not a risk unless her ferritin is high. But if her ferritin is high, this gene gives her a 10-fold higher risk of heart disease, which is super high risk.
10-fold, yeah.
We want that to be 0-fold. So you got to make sure the ferritin is between 50 and 100, not just 50 to 500 or some kind of crazy nonsense.
Yeah.
Has to be optimal, not just normal in this one.
Ferritin, so that's a representation of how much iron your body is storing in tissues and organs. Now, we like to see your blood labs with ferritin between 50 and 100 for everybody. But if you got this gene and it's, say, 130, you have a 10-fold high incidence of heart disease right there. So that's a pretty big issue. See, a lot of oxidative stress and inflammation, so that gene needs to be attenuated. And it's very easy to do. So this is this process called fission. Oxidative stress, bad food, poor circadian rhythm, chemicals, mitochondrial damage, small, weak mitochondria. Now, when it comes to, like, I'll talk about this case study now. So I've got some genes to go over. So this is kind of like worst case scenario, right? So when we're working with people, we check all of the pathways genetically for testosterone optimization. We do a testosterone pathway analysis. And this is one of 7 pathways that we have a look at genetically. Now, here's a couple of standouts from this guy. Now, remember, he was on testosterone replacement therapy, and we successfully got him off in 4 months. And I'll show you how we did that. So number 1, he's got that slow testosterone gene. Number 2, he's got a lot of estrogen risk. And this is only one side. He's got 2 other big estrogen issues. Now, when it comes to estrogen, especially when you are very sensitive to estrogen, this is the problem. This is Dr. J speaking about it.
Bad estrogen genes, though.
Okay.
So
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So this is another one of those sections. Estrogen is a hot spot, and gut section is a hot spot here. So
Okay.
this is another reason it's tough to put on muscle mass. It's tough to bulk up, because he's fighting a lot of estrogen, and most of these genes basically say, yeah, he's got more estrogen receptors.
Yeah.
And
A little bit of estrogen goes a long, long way.
yeah. So
Over 320 people, I'm seeing it about 20%. We see men like that. Now, he's also got pretty bad gut genes. And we're going to talk about that as we progress. But, when he was on TRT, he'd get one big dose over 3 weeks, sort of go up really high and it'd come crashing back down. He felt like shit. Sensitive nipples, and he just felt like garbage. So a lot of that expensive testosterone was going down this pathway to estrogen, causing all of those issues. So a little bit of a lesson on, how genes do this. So that gene in particular, the low testosterone gene, this is a normal protein, and these proteins do work like make testosterone. Now, this is a letter sequence, so it encodes for this protein, and this is a high functioning protein. This is beautiful. Now, everybody's got these things called single nucleotide polymorphism. So it's got a different letter sequence, and it comes out as an altered protein. And it doesn't take a lot. You see here, just a little bit different. So it doesn't work as efficiently. So that's an example of these single nucleotide polymorphisms, namely this testosterone gene right here. Now, he also had other issues as well. Estrogen metabolism in 2 ways. Number 1, he's got what's called a slow COMT gene, catechol O methyltransferase. So it's got 3 variations on this SNP here. Very fast, and that's what I've got. Normal, and then you've got very slow. So it's 40% slower. So here's the issue with this. It's responsible for metabolizing estrogens, but also catechols from foods. And he was eating a lot of catechols from foods, so it's burdening that gene. And it's also responsible for metabolizing neurotransmitters like dopamine, noradrenaline, and adrenaline. So when they're up too high and you can't metabolize it, you're going to get anxious and you're going to come crashing back down and lose your motivation. And this is what he was experiencing. And when this COMT is burdened, estrogen metabolism is down regulated. So I guess you can appreciate how that's not cool. And it's also going to increase your cancer risk. So when we had a look at his COMT genes, what we also discovered is that homocysteine will further slow this one down. And when we checked his blood labs, his own homocysteine was high, so it was further burdened. And when your homocysteine is high, guess what else happens? Mostly you have low glutathione. So as you can see here, these are the consequences of low glutathione. So we had a lot of work to do. Neuro and brain, cardiovascular, stroke, you've got thyroid and blood sugar issues, immune issues as well. Other issues like skin, aging, arthritis, fatigue. So you get it. When that's shit, you're going to feel shit. So this is the other issue that he had. He had poor gut health because he had poor gut genes. Now, when it comes to COMT and estrogen elimination, there's 3 pathways. The preferred pathway comes down here. Perfect. Then you got these other two pathways, which aren't great. And when we checked his gut health, he had high beta glucuronidase, which was biasing it to come down these pathways instead of the preferred pathway. So that was causing more stress and inflammation. So this is how it can drive cancer. So the preferred pathway is up here. The other two are down here, DNA damage. So you can see how that isn't helpful at all. And when it came to other ways that our body eliminates estrogen, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 issues there. So when he was on that really expensive TRT, he was estrogen dominant. He was wasting all of that. So what happened was we gave him the plan, and he's 36 years old too, and he wants to have kids. And the problem with testosterone replacement therapy is when you're on it, LH, the precursor to testosterone, and FSH, spermagenesis, they're undetectable. So we checked his sperm count, it was 2 million. And you need 15 million to be fertile. So after 4 months, we got it to 23 million and his testosterone to 813. And that was with the slow testosterone gene. So it is possible when you optimize all of these pathways. Now, I just want to touch on, a couple of the big things that we see with food sensitivities. This one in particular, with over 320 people we've tested, we're seeing that about 60% of people we test are sensitive to lectins, and these are everywhere. So the system will recommend it, these whole grains, and probably your personal trainer will recommend it too. And, they just don't understand that this could be an issue for you personally. So this is what Dr. J says about these lectins and how deleterious they are if you got these genes that are sensitive. They can't metabolize the lectins. Listen to this.
The lectin is the big one. That's a 4-fold higher risk of heart disease, even as a plus minus, the SELE.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So lectins are going to trigger a lot of damage to the arteries and damage to the gut. I would recommend avoiding grains.
Yeah.
Grains are the major source of lectins.
Yeah.
And his gut's very sensitive to grains also, with the gluten. And he's got a thyroid gene that comes up later with gluten as well. So I would say just take off the grains,
So that's the lectins right there. Now, some people have a really high sensitivity and some people have a low sensitivity. Now, if you've got a low sensitivity, that doesn't mean you can't eat them. But if you've got gut issues, you've got inflammation, you have to attenuate that before you reintroduce them. And they still could be a problem. Now, when it comes to testosterone production and lectins, they're a big problem because they bind to glycoprotein hormones like thyroid stimulating hormone, FSH, spermagenesis, LH, testosterone production. So they're binding to these receptors and gumming up the works. And here's some more research on what other things lectins could do when you are genetically sensitive to them. So we're talking about gut issues, immune, hormones, as we discussed, brain and mood, hyaluronic acid, which is absolutely foundational. It's in all your cells, really important for heart health and skin health, nutrient malabsorption, skin, histamine, autoimmune issues. Now, basically, let me just go down here. The worst thing you can do, without question, is be on this Western diet, yeah? Because we don't want to increase aromatase to take testosterone and convert into estrogen, do we? So here's just a few things that will upregulate aromatization. So even if you've got suboptimal testosterone and you've got these issues here, you're going to have more estrogen than you want. You're going to be fatigued. You're going to have mood issues. You find it very difficult to get the results you want in the gym. Cognition tanks, heart disease down the road. So insulin, cortisol, xenoestrogen, so fake estrogen chemicals. Your trigs are up, your inflammation is up, and even estrogen itself. So when your estrogen is up, it's a double whammy. Now, one of the most important things that I try and optimize for my clientele is simply dihydrate testosterone. As I mentioned there, it is 10 times more potent than testosterone. Now, to convert testosterone into dihydro instead of estrogen, we must have a very powerful NADPH system. So I'll talk about that on the next slide. And there's also 15 inhibitors. And if you want to know more about these 15 inhibitors, I can do a deep dive on that on another video. So we have to get these inhibitors out so we can push testosterone to dihydro instead of down to estrogen. And then we have to enhance NADPH. So you can think of NADPH as like the ultimate battery pack for your body. So what drains NADPH? Emotional or physical stress, too much inflammation, toxins and fucking chemicals. That includes non-native EMF, high blood sugar, poor sleep, overtraining. So there are a few things that can take you out. Now, what increases NADPH? Well, sunlight does through melanin production. And of course, sleep, low carb periods. So you don't have to go low carb all the time. This will increase NADP plus twofold. Real foods your DNA know is real foods. Mild hormesis like cold and sauna. So you don't want to go at cold therapy too hard because it can backfire and you cause too much stress. You need to be very careful for anything like that, and make sure you detox these terribly deleterious chemicals in your body. Healthy circadian rhythm, which we'll talk about, and also grounding your feet to the earth, because when you ground, you get free electrons, which boosts your electron pool. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is to protect your mitochondria. You probably haven't heard about deuterium previously. So when you make ATP, the currency of the cell, energy, you eat food, okay? And it's all your food turns into is electrons and hydrogens. So you've got two forms of hydrogens that I want to talk about. Hydrogen 1 is what's called a proton, and hydrogen 2 is what's called a deuterium. The issue with deuterium is it's twice as big and twice as heavy, and I'll show you why that is terrible in a moment. So when you eat your foods, the electrons go into the mitochondrial inner membrane space through the electron transport chain, all the way from complex 1 to complex 4. Then as they're going through, all they're doing is sucking up these protons into the inner membrane space there. And when there's enough of them up there, it's like the hydrogen is a plus and the electrons are negatives. It's like a battery. So when there's enough protons up there, it causes an electrical pressure gradient. Then they are forced down through this protein complex called ATP synthase. It spins it like a little nanomotor. And that's what produces your energy and your deuterium depleted molecular water. And that's kind of how it plays out. Now, if we're eating foods that we're sensitive to, we got inflammation, we got all of those issues, this shit busts. The issue with deuterium is when it comes down here into ATP synthase, it's too big and it shutters and busts that nanomotor. So over time, you have big issues. Now, they've known about deuterium for close to 70 years. And I think from what I've been told by these experts, this research has been buried. It's starting to come out. This one was published in October 13th of October 24. Deuterium depleted diet. And I'll show you exactly how to get this right. Here are the health benefits: cancer prevention, treatment, depression, diabetes, memory, anti-aging, sports performance. And these are the foods that we're told to eat, okay? So you might want to pause that and have a look at those. I will not read them out. Two issues. One, they are low in vitamins and minerals. So you don't have enough vitamins and minerals, even though your belly's full, to turn all these metabolic pathways to get all these systems working optimally. That is issue one. Issue number two is that we need to get deuterium at about 130 parts per million, and these foods contain 145 to 210 parts per million. So if we're eating those foods, we're clearly going to go over 130 parts per million. And for some reason, I don't know why, maybe you can tell me in the comments below, the foods that they tell us not to eat are number one, they're very high in vitamins and minerals. They are nutrient dense, keeping all the metabolic pathways turning. And number two, they are low deuterium foods, anywhere from 110 to 135. So we naturally go back to the optimal deuterium levels. So think about that for a moment. Why are they telling us to eat these foods? Maybe because they want us to be slaves and sick. Maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong. Now, the next thing you want to get right is your circadian rhythm. 3 important reasons. And I've talked about this in another video, so go check out my other videos and how to dial in your circadian rhythm. Now, if it's out, and I'll talk about how to get it right in a moment, emotions go to fucking shit. You have fluctuations in mood, irritability, anxiety, loss of empathy, frustration, impulsivity, negative silence, negative thoughts, self-doubt, self-sabotage. And because you're fatigued, you use caffeine, which backfires. And at the end of the day, like I used to, it's like I've just had enough, man. I'm full of dread and anxiety. Beer. That's what I used to do. And then at work, your earning potential tanks. Cognitive performance, memory consolidation, attention, concentration, communication, decision making, creativity, productivity, motor performance, sports, gym, and social connectivity. So you're just like, fuck this, man. I've had enough. And all the while, all of these pathologies, these metabolic issues are getting worse because the mitochondria need you to have your circadian rhythm on point. We have to make sure this is right. Number 3, daytime sleepiness, micro sleeps, driving a car, cardiovascular disease. And the doctors don't talk about this one, do they? Altered stress response, altered sensory thresholds, infection, lowered immunity, more cancer, metabolic abnormalities, the mitochondria, diabetes, depression, and even psychosis. So I've got another video all about this, but suffice to say that all you got to do is when you wake up in the morning, get at least 5 minutes of the morning sun. So the sun, you don't want to look directly at the sun, but the sun's photons come into the retina and they go into the brain. They say it's daytime. All right. It switches on your clocks and sets your circadian rhythm. Now, it's good to be outside as much as you can. Of course, don't get burnt. I've done another video on this. And at the end of the day, it's another great idea to get out for about 5 minutes as the sun goes down, because that tells you, your brain, to release melatonin so you can go to sleep. And then at nighttime, do not have on bright lights in your home, because that tells your brain that it's noon, daytime, and your brain is confused. So even though you're exhausted, you can't go to sleep. You toss and you turn. So lights really down. You can have candle lights, or you can have some very low level lights and put the blue blockers on. So I've done another video on this. And when it comes to the mitochondria, getting them healthy again, evolutionary based foods. I've already spoken about this. Evolutionary based foods. Intermittent cold exposure, be careful with that. Sauna. Intermittent fasting. Circadian rhythm, sun in the morning, in the afternoon, and throughout the day. And then this is simply, you've heard of Wim Hof breathing, so be careful with that, or it's called Tumo breathing. That will also increase mitochondrial biogenesis, and HIIT cardio and weight training will also increase your mitochondria. We'll get the old shitty ones out, the mutated ones, and it will put in brand new healthy mitochondria. And as a bonus here, when it comes to testosterone production, it's not just your body. It is the way you think. It is mindset. You can be sitting down playing chess and win, and testosterone levels go up. And you can also be sitting down playing chess and lose and push testosterone up if you think, well, I'm going to be better. I'm going to get better. I'm excited to learn how to do this more. So you got to flip your mindset to there's no losses in life. You either win or you learn. That is huge. So you can pick up that book from Professor Zapolsky. So it's what I call the winner's effect. It doesn't matter what fucking happens to you in life. Even if you win, you've got a setback. I'm going to learn how to get better. I'm going to learn how to get stronger. And you think your way to testosterone, which is going to increase your confidence and keep you in the playing field of life. So to wrap it all up here, circadian rhythm is huge. The mitochondria is tied to that. Deuterium status. You can use a DNA-enhanced diet. If you want to know more about that, drop a comment below, or an elimination diet. Food timing is important. Stem cells, vitamins and minerals, enhancing mitochondrial functions. So I hope you found that insightful. If you got any questions, drop in the comments below, because I'm sick of seeing men suffering out there and they don't seem to care. They brush it off, say it's no big deal. Then they gaslight us and say it's supposed to decline as you age. Never back that idea. We've helped lots of men in their 60s. So there it is. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll see you on the next one.